So we're going to call to order at 7:36. It is January 5th, 2023, APDC. Let's open up this agenda. Pardon me. I guess we have somebody here from the public. Why don't we start with that, with opening public comment?
Hi, good night. Anna Lockwood, 91 Main Street. I came to actually ask that, last meeting I was here, I requested meetings could be recorded. I'm glad that that is being recorded. But if, it would be great if this could be an ongoing policy or procedure of the board or the commission. And this building is equipped with equipment to record meetings on the lower floor. The capital planning had all their meetings here and it was recorded. And it's just good. It just gives more information to the public about what's the ongoings of the town. So I read so as an example, I read some of the minutes from the APDC for this year, and it has a lot of discussions, but from the minutes you can't really get the nature of the discussions, what was discussed, and the pros and the cons, so just we can learn more about town business. So if we could make it as a procedure or protocol that the meetings will be recorded, I'm sure the public will appreciate. That's it.
Any comment from the commission?
Do we know why we haven't had that in the past, and why? Well, I know why we haven't had it. We weren't informed of it, that we had that possibility.
Mm-hmm.
I think we inquired about it before. Is there any reason why that can't happen?
I don't know. The town manager set this recording tonight, and I think as long as they're willing to spend the resources, they can happen.
Are there resources that allow that to happen?
Probably.
Yeah.
So there's enough people to,
I was called at the last minute,
Yeah.
so there wasn't.
so it's possible
It's
that you
very
might not have
possible.
been available, and then this
It has to be
wouldn't happen.
scheduled in, like anything else. We schedule these in.
Okay.
Yeah, it'd look really weird if it was just one of us with a selfie stick.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I think maybe we can post agendas a week ahead of time, but I think our meeting schedule is fairly regular. It's the first Thursday of every month, so I will speak to the town manager to see if she's willing to do that.
Appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you. Nice night.
You're
All
welcome.
right, you
I'll
too.
watch you all later on YouTube.
Okay.
Night, Anna.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving right along, review of minutes. I was informed by the town clerk that our last meeting was irregular. I had submitted the agenda, but she was sick that day. I should have submitted it to both people in the town clerk's office. I only submitted to one, so they didn't get it posted on time, and I didn't realize that when we had our meeting. So our last meeting was irregular, and I feel like the best thing that we can do is to kind of rediscuss all the matters of all the material matters. So at least the things that we did discuss will be discussed in a properly posted public meeting.
So if it was irregular, does that mean it was still valid?
No, it's not, and I don't think we can post minutes for the December meeting. I don't think it's we were not supposed to be discussing town business at that meeting because it wasn't that was in violation of the public meeting law, which there's nothing we can do about that now, but what we can do is just review what we did discuss in a public forum.
Okay.
So then I will.
Do we have the agenda?
I have the minutes.
I have the minutes.
You have the minutes?
I have the minutes from December 1st.
You do?
Mhm.
Okay,
Did you send us this?
I did not send them out.
Okay.
okay,
It was in a regular meeting.
It was a regular
You
meeting.
knew-
okay, these are agendas, the minutes, okay, no, for some reason I thought I kept those, but you have them.
I do. It was the same situation. I was coming in late,
Okay.
so I
that's-
think you had started, and I
Okay,
started when I
yes.
picked up.
Okay, then, take it away, Mr. Lloyd.
New business was the email switchover. New email addresses had not been working properly. Looking for support from the town to figure that out. That was our new business.
Yeah.
Not sure if we want to rediscuss. Do you want to run through them all first?
No, I mean, I think, yeah, why don't you just continue reading the minutes?
Okay. For old business, town meeting, Mr. Schoolenbreen stated that there was a lot of comments coming from the select board, readdressing the windows that were broken, used previous comments about the temperature in the facility. Still looking for the cost estimate of new versus refurbished, which did not line up line item by line item. I.e., painting was included in one but not the other, was one of our biggest issues. Discussion about the administrative review and the design team, if the architectural preservation experience was adequate for the person that was submitted the proposal. Override was not passed by an estimated 3-1 vote at town meeting. Biggest issue on the amended text was the 45-day public review that certain members had issues with. Next was email traffic, questions about when the project estimate would be completed, comments via email not in good taste, and trying to get back from the original estimate that the majority of the windows were just going to be restored. Next was the Ritter windows continued. Pictures provided show window condition with storm windows versus out, showing a vast difference between the two. Goes back to the maintenance of the larger goes back to the lack of maintenance being the larger factor with the windows. Third bullet item was public comment for town meeting. APDC of acting more like a historical commission versus architectural was the accusation. Working on submitting the bylaws to spell out the ADPC powers more clearly.
So that was public comment from
Town meeting,
town meeting, okay. So this is all just the recap of town meeting,
pretty much.
okay.
Next line item was we were going to strengthen the verbiage in the design section, making it crystal clear guidelines. Fixing section 13-5, 113-5 to clarify what it is relates to our mission statement, and continuing on a bylaw revision that is needed. Adding terminology like preservation of existing material and replace like/approved alternatives if prevention is not available. Next line item was the National Register for 30 School Street. No word back from the chairman. Line item 5, future request confirmation for Brooks House and Ritter Building on the National Register. Number 6, bylaw amendments were denied by town meeting. And number 7 was budget approved for $5,000. And then
5?
that was
I thought it was, okay. Was it, we got 5?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's what we asked for.
Okay,
and that was the end. Then we adjourned at 8:43.
okay.
What happened to the agenda? It's not posted. I mean, you did send it to them. I mean, I'm looking on the town's website, and I see the November, but I don't see the December agenda.
That's
December.
because she didn't post it. That's why we weren't supposed to have a meeting, is
Right.
that correct?
That's right.
Well, okay, so if we didn't have a meeting, but we had an agenda,
We didn't have an agenda, it wasn't a posted agenda.
It wasn't valid,
Yeah,
Okay.
it wasn't a valid.
so we had our meeting, but it wasn't
Okay.
a valid
It
meeting.
needs to be posted 48 hours before the meeting, so,
okay.
We weren't aware
yeah.
that was the case at that time.
So we had no meeting in December.
No official meeting, that's right. But I'm glad you kept minutes just the same. And if you could just go ahead and send us what you do have.
Will do. Yep.
Just so we can have notes. I think it was a good recap of what happened at town meeting, and a lot of these issues I think we're gonna discuss again tonight anyway. So I think we can kind of recover that tonight. Yeah, and again, we did vote in the December meeting to approve the November minutes, but that vote was invalid, so I think we do need to re-vote on that.
For the November minutes?
For the November minutes, that's right. Because we officially did not take a vote to approve those minutes. Because we officially did not have a meeting.
Ah,
See?
gotcha.
So, procedural thing, but yes,
So that would be October's too.
Yeah,
We voted on we did
Right.
October and November's
Right.
minutes
Okay.
in December.
right. I'll move that we approve both the October and November 2022 meeting minutes.
Second.
all in favor?
Right.
Aye.
Great. Do you have anything else from the minutes, or anything that we voted on in December? I think that was,
That was it as
that
far
was
as
it.
voting.
Okay, great.
It was mostly a lot of recap of town meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. Then let's move on to correspondence. I got one sad bit of correspondence just this morning from Anthony DeCastro, who sent in his resignation from the commission.
What constituency did he satisfy? And like the bylaw states you represent certain constituencies. I believe you live in the architectural preservation district.
Mhm.
There has to be, like. So do we know where he fit?
At large,
What? He was at large?
yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
he was at large because I'm the director. I forget
the technical person?
technical.
Technical.
Yep.
Okay.
And you're what?
What?
What's your position?
I believe I'm at large as well.
But you're an engineer
Yeah.
And you're a craftsman?
from the Historical Commission,
Right,
representative also.
historical, that's right, yes, that's your role, okay.
Mhm.
I don't know if when I was appointed, I'll have to go back and look at the meeting minutes, whether I was actually given a constituency with that appointment. So that's one of the things that I'm gonna go back and look.
Yeah,
Because we have a bylaw, the bylaw says, you should represent this certain aspect of the business, and,
I believe the bylaw says, yeah, to the extent possible.
yeah. But it also says that the select board can appoint 2 additional members to.
Yeah, okay,
Mhm.
well, then we have 1 or possibly 3 vacancies.
Yeah, it's their call.
We need to let Anthony know that he needs to send in a formal letter to the select board that he has resigned the
Okay.
position.
Does that need to be in writing? He sent an
Yes.
email, it does, okay.
Supposed to be in writing to the
Okay.
Select board.
Okay, cause I know he
As far as I
informed
know.
the town manager, I'll confirm what the proper procedure is.
Yeah.
Okay. Pardon me a moment.
Just for my own information, when we approve meeting minutes, where do they go and how do they get posted?
They go to the town clerk,
And then she posts them to the website.
yes. Right, this is a PDF. This computer is such a struggle. All right. So we will move on on to old business, which is a lot of things that we've been discussing at every meeting for the last 6 months or so. But I think there are some issues that have been asked, some questions that have been asked very pointedly from the select board. They wanted us to appear before them in December to answer some of these questions, and I felt like we needed to meet and discuss them before we could answer as a board to make sure that we all agreed on the answers to those questions. Meeting in December just wasn't in the cards, so we can expect that to be coming up. That in some capacity that we'll be meeting with the select board to answer these questions. The first, though, was the question of whether or not we would still consider or reconsider our determination on the CTA for the Ritter building. We denied that application because we felt that the windows should be preserved, and but everything else on the application we were okay with. So we informed them that they needed to resubmit it, and with that alteration, and we'll get to that in a moment. But the select board has continued to ask the town manager to ask us if we would just reconsider our decision and approve the CTA. I open this to discussion.
I think that, given the fact that the set of drawings that came with the CTA don't reflect what the town really wants to do. You know, the current set of drawings that we approved for the CTA have significant deficiencies in it with regards to what the select board has said they want to do.
Okay, I'm sorry to interject, just to clarify, the drawings for the CTA which we did not
Right.
approve.
That's exactly right.
Right,
Excuse
yes.
me.
Okay.
The CTA that we did not approve.
Okay.
I think it's important for the town to produce a set of drawings that reflects what the town really wants to do. What I understand the select board has asked us is that what is it that we expect to see? You know, what is it that we want? You know, from the town in order to make a decision about what the town wants to do. And I think that what we've done is that we've asked them to do cost comparisons between replacing windows versus restoring windows. And we've seen that information, although there is some discrepancies in the comparison. You know, the numbers that show the cost of replacing windows doesn't reflect interior painting, which will be required. And that was a significant amount of money in the restoration cost, you know, of the windows. You know, so I think that, you know, from my perspective, what I want the town to do is to come up with a set of drawings that reflects what they actually want to do. You know, the current set of drawings shows replacing only certain number of windows in this building, yet we've now been told that they want to replace all the windows. I think, you know, because we haven't seen it in a set of plans and drawings. And, you know, so, you know, my input to the
I'm sorry, could you clarify that? Is that something they just heard word of mouth, that they want to replace all the windows?
Yes.
Or- Okay,
Yes.
all right.
Yes. I mean, because, you know, the information that was presented to us on the day of the annual special town meeting was for all the windows to be replaced.
Okay.
You know, the small casement windows at the lower levels, this window,
Okay.
you know, which is currently called for restoration.
Okay.
You know, so it's like, what do they really want to do? You know, I think that the town needs to decide what they really want to do. And then, you know, we can make a decision about, you know, we can look at that set of drawings and we can say, you know, this meets the preservation requirements that we have. Now, I'm here to tell you, in my humble opinion, and based on my experiences of doing the work, there is an inadequate amount of money budgeted for this job to replace all the windows. I just think that, the cost estimate that was presented to the annual town meeting audience for approval was based on data that was generated probably in 2018 or 2019. And it's no secret that costs have risen dramatically in the construction world. And the costs have risen dramatically everywhere, And I think that the town needs to go back and look at what's been budgeted and decide how to move forward with this project. The cost estimate for new windows to replace all of the windows in this building is going to eat up almost all of the money budgeted for this project. Yet there's still a requirement for roof repairs, there's still a requirement for painting, for restoration of, wood trim that's around the windows. So
And what about the walkway?
well, the
That
walkway is
was
a
the main-
separately budgeted and a
That's
separate
budgeted
project.
separately?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's not going to be done. Once again, in my humble opinion,
Okay.
that's not also going to be enough money to do that project. I mean, there's concrete work, there's stone work, there's structural steel work, and I think that project is budgeted at $127,000. There's no way, given the current pricing environment that we're in, that work is probably going to get done for $127,000. The current budgeted amount for this project, what the town approved at the annual meeting, is $120,000. I think if you look at the cost estimate that the town manager shared with us on November 15th for replacing all of the windows, it's almost $100,000 just for the windows. So, I mean, I think that that's a huge issue here, is that, what does the town think that it can get done for the budgeted amount? Maybe the town would have to go back. I'm not sure how you can transfer capital funds from one project to another. That's something that I'm not familiar with. If they have less money spent on another capital project, can they shift those dollars over, as long as the entire capital budget stays intact for that particular annual town meeting appropriation? I don't know, so.
How does the costs of everything affect us and the CTA?
I think that I believe that you could do a modified restoration of the windows and get closer to the budgeted amount. We got a top shelf cost for restoration, and it is expensive, but it's also been provided for in a non-competitive environment. And that'll have an impact on what it might be. Whereas the windows, new windows, are generally priced out in a competitive environment. Pella windows, Anderson windows are the type that have been specified for replacement. What we saw in the original set of drawings that came to us. Those windows are kind of an apples and apples comparison. Anderson isn't going to overprice their windows and lose the opportunity to, say, Marvin windows or Pella windows. I mean, we got a price from Pella windows. Would Anderson windows be a little less? I don't know. I don't think so, because I think in the new window market, those prices are pretty much set based on what the traffic will bear. The restoration, once again, is there someone out there that could do the work for less money? I don't know. But the bottom line here for us is, what does the town really want to do? And if it really wants to provide all new windows, then it should state so. And it should really say, this is what we think the estimated costs will be, and then compare that with what's been appropriated by the town at the annual town meeting. One of the things that I asked Paul Visconti before he left was, when was the estimate done for this project? And I never got an answer. Now, I did not ask Paul Visconti what the architect engineer's estimate was, because that is somewhat proprietary information. In my experiences in doing government work, we could tell bidders, we have a cost estimate, and here's the range. This is what you deal with.
Mm-hmm.
This is like in the world of Corps of Engineer projects, the Corps of Engineers would release a set of drawings. They wouldn't tell architects or they wouldn't tell contractors what the estimate was. But what they were required to do was to say, here's the range. It's a $3 to $4 million project, or it's a $3 to $5 million project, so that they had some idea as to whether they had the bonding capacity or they had the ability to do the job based on what their experiences are. So I wasn't asking Paul Visconti for what the cost estimate was. What I asked Paul was, do you have a current engineer's estimate for this project? And I got no answer. I think the town manager and the select board, they need to get better organized, and they need to understand what it is that they really want to do, come up with an estimate. I'm not asking for the estimate, but come up with a current estimate, and then make a decision about what they're going to move forward with. Now, what we do know is that the town manager told the select board, I think the meeting in December, was that she was going to have to hire a new architect because the current set of drawings that she has are not good for going out for bid. They have no information about the asbestos and how that should be handled with regards to the window glazing, and it doesn't reflect, the discussion that she had with the select board about replacing all of the windows versus just what was in the original set of drawings.
And when did she say these things?
At the select board meeting in
At the
December.
select board meeting?
Yep.
Do you remember
Yep.
the date of that meeting?
I want to say it might have been December 6th because
Okay.
I watched that meeting,
Yeah.
and she said, that the architect who did the drawings had retired, and that she was going to have to go out and get a new architect.
Okay. All right. So if anybody at home wants to confirm that, go check out the select board December 6th meeting. We believe it was discussed at that time.
Yeah, I think that's when it was. Let me.
So the
Some graphs.
set of plans that we had with the retiring architect aren't accurate then,
No.
right? This large window in that set of plans is to be totally restored.
Right.
I presume because of the size of it, rather than being replaced it could be replaced into 4 separate windows, rather than one big window. So we don't have the right information.
No. I think that, what they've said is, and I've heard, the select board chair say this, is what do we want? What I want as a member of this commission is to have the town give a good, honest effort, given the budget that it has, to restore windows versus replacing them. One of the things that I did, I sent pictures of the large windows, the biggest windows that we have in the building. And if you look at those windows, the ones that have missing storms have the greatest amount of deterioration. Mm-hmm. The ones that don't have missing storms can be restored, And I think that an architect, a new architect, could look at that and say, hey, maybe one of the ways to save the town money and to meet the budgeted amount that was approved at the annual town meeting is that maybe we replace those missing storm windows and restore the existing windows that were originally called to be replaced. Last thing, Colin. The issue with the big windows is they're hard to operate. They are, But I'm here to tell you that if we buy a brand new window, it's going to be hard to operate too.
Harder.
Maybe. Because it's going to be more sealed and more weather tight because it doesn't rely on an exterior storm.
My Anderson windows, new Anderson windows, top of the line, I got probably 10, 12 years ago. I have to push them down like that and pull it up like that, and it seems like every year they've gotten harder and harder. It's like the springs get tighter and tighter in them.
Yeah, I've noticed the same thing at the over at the United Parish of Lunenburg. They have quite large windows, even larger than these. But man, it takes
Their replacement windows?
Their replacement windows are very, very difficult to
Yeah.
operate just because of all that surface area, all that friction. Because they're sealed by friction. So,
My
yeah.
1953 windows with the weights and the ropes.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think these are. I mean, the storm windows, I agree, are difficult to operate. I don't think these are difficult to operate.
We did a test ourselves. We went and opened
Yeah.
most of them.
Yeah. Yeah. Did Mr. Lloyd? Do you have anything to say on this topic, or Mr. McGrath?
We based all our information on the plans that we had.
Mm-hmm.
And the one session we had with the architect before he retired, I had a lot of questions after that we met with him, particularly about the windows, and I emailed them and I never got any responses from him. So I assume he retired and shut up shop. But if the town is saying, and this needs to be clarified, that all the windows are gonna be restored, that's a different CTA than the one that was filled out for the plans that we had. If this window isn't gonna be restored and it's going to be, they're saying it's gonna be replaced, that's a different CTA than what we got. It's been the information and the work they're doing has been updated. The architect they had, and the plans were so small you couldn't read them, but the architect was an excellent architect and informed in historic preservation. The work that he spec'd was very good.
Yeah, he was gonna do a lot of restoration.
Yes.
He was gonna do a restoration with all the small casement windows, he was gonna do restoration with this, he was gonna do restoration with the doors that are on the balcony.
Yeah.
Restoration with the small windows that are above it, the restoration with the decorative window that's in the roof.
The chimney and the brickwork
Yeah.
and the entryway and the walkway were all sensitively designed for the architecture of the building.
Yep.
Yeah, in fact, I think the small casement windows to a large extent all have an outside storm.
Mm-hmm.
So he must have felt that that was a legitimate approach to providing a project that would, deliver the results that the town wanted. That is that, wood that needed to be restored, windows that needed to be restored would be done that way. But I think that, the issue with the large windows was basically prompted by they're hard to open. And they are, but so are new windows outside going to be hard to open. I would also be willing to bet that none of those windows have really been opened since the building became air conditioned. And that caused probably a lack of desire to replace the outside storms because you couldn't have an open window without an outside storm in July without having bugs in there,
We opened all of them.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that I do want to say is that
Mr. Lloyd, do you have anything to speak on this topic?
I kind of wanted to piggyback on what Member McGrath was talking about the change in the scope over however long ago they did the original plan for this. If the town manager is also talking about needing a new architect, I think that's the perfect opportunity to partner with the architect and kind of get that information, current state, because obviously the windows have changed since they did the first estimate, current pricing, because the pricing's obviously changed, and as we talked about, what was the original budget for the town?
120,000.
If it was 120,000, what does that get us today in today's dollars?
Right.
Because today's dollars are far different than yesterday's dollars, and definitely far different than when they originally scoped the project. So to make sure that we're all on the same page, because if they're talking replacement of all windows, and budget-wise we can only replace 10, we're talking apples and oranges at that point.
Yeah, which is a good point. If you're only going to replace 10, then replace the ones on the back side of the building, not the front side. Because then that kind of supports the historic nature of the building.
I think just for the concern of this building, it is our mission to kind of be the steward of historic buildings in the district, and that we do have an advocacy role. The bylaw does state that, and that it would be good for us to be involved in the project management of the Ritter building restoration, though there's certainly, I feel like this whole discussion brings us well beyond what the, you know, especially discussions of the budget and like whether or not we can afford this project. It's really, it's not the ABC's job to discuss that or consider that. So I'd like to kind of circling back to the original question, would we reconsider our decision? Because they're talking about this, they're talking about submitting a new CTA with a different project plan, but they have asked us, would we reconsider our determination on the CTA, and my answer is no. I don't think we should. I think we made a very good decision keeping these historical windows, and I think the select board have been trying to, my understanding is that they're trying to demonstrate that restoration is not feasible because it's way too expensive. And my only response to that is that we should not require them to restore the windows, because it doesn't say it in our bylaw or in our rules and regulations that you have to improve the historic state. You just have to keep it at the current state of historical preservation. So as long as you keep it the same, that's good enough. That satisfies the requirements of the bylaw. So you don't need to restore it. And the whole reason we said, no, you can't replace the windows, is that we've decided that these windows are in pretty good condition. I don't think they really need restoration. I would say they could use maintenance, they should be maintained, but if it's either, you know, restoration, which is too expensive, or replace, I'd say just, you know, let them decay. They've made it, 80, 90 years, from a historical preservation argument. I certainly wouldn't say, oh, well, we should replace them because they're too expensive to restore. Like, that doesn't make any sense at all. Well, you just leave them alone. Just leave them alone. So I would still approve the application that they submitted if they simply took that off of it, the replacement of the windows. And if that's all they did, and they submitted the same thing. Now, since then, we've learned a lot of things about the project, and I agree. It's probably not a very good application, and there's a lot of things that probably need to be revisited. But within the scope of this commission, I think the main thing that we need to consider is, just would we approve that CTA? And my answer is, if they took the windows, the replacement windows off that CTA, yes, I would approve it. But not until then. The windows got to stay. They're historic windows.
I agree. Nothing's changed on the CTA. So.
Okay.
So the select board's asked us, what do we want from them? And one of the things that I'd like to ask the select board to do when they hire a new architect is for that architect to come in and sit down with us and talk about the windows.
And the reason that I voted no on the windows because it wasn't like for like, so there was a decrease in the historic values of the window. The window wasn't going to be the same size, it wasn't going to have the same trim, it was going to be different than what was there. If it was the same, that wouldn't have been a problem. And we had no further, after the architect told us that, and we talked about it, we had no further chance to speak with the architect or ask questions about that, what the trim was going to be like, what possible alternatives there could be. So we didn't have that opportunity. The only reason I requested cost of restoration and new windows, that's how I measure. So if we have somebody in the district that has a house going demolition by neglect, we measure that differently because the person is poor or elderly and has no income, we measure it differently than somebody that has a development in town that has money to put into that development and has a historic property. I measure that differently, that person has resources that they might be able to spend a little bit more money to protect the historic value of the property. So for me, the cost of the new windows and the cost of restoration, I used the cost as one measure of determining whether it was a good idea or not to replace the windows or restore them. So my vote depended partly on that. That's the only reason I requested money. Had nothing to do with the cost of the whole project or anything.
There's the two things that I heard at the special town meeting that the select board members said that I thought were important is that they're concerned about energy efficiency, and they're concerned about maintenance. I think that the data supports that an old single pane window with a storm window is about the same R value as a new window with the sealed double glass. So you can answer that issue of energy efficiency to say, if you kept the existing windows, and reglazed them where required, and repaired the storm windows that were in place, that you can meet the energy efficiency issues. The second issue of maintenance is a little trickier because if we have new windows, the assumption is they're going to take the drawings did show them removing the exterior storm frames. And when you do that, while that, aluminum clad Pella window isn't going to need a lot of maintenance, all that wood around that window is going to need continued maintenance. The specifications in the drawings called for, there to be repairs made where required and for that to be repainted. I had replacement windows done in my house. And one of the things that made it work was that the wood trim got covered with aluminum. Now, it wasn't a historic house, but it was a way to solve a maintenance issue at a window opening. We're not going to see, that existing wood get covered with aluminum, leastwise not against the current set of drawings that we saw where we issued our disapproval. So I think that that's another discussion item for us to have with an architect to say, you put a brand new window in a wood framed opening, what's the maintenance requirements? Yeah, you're right. There won't be a lot of maintenance done on that aluminum clad window. But if you don't maintain that frame and that sill, it isn't going to make a damn bit of difference with regards to the energy efficiency, that's going to start to deteriorate. So I think those are two things that we could discuss with an architect. The last thing that I'll say about design is that the town has made a commitment to buy a really good new window. This is not a vinyl window like we have on town hall today. We had a discussion about that last spring when we looked at the plans to replace those windows at the lower level in the back of the building. That horse, already left the barn, is already gone. Yeah. So the town is making a commitment to put, really good new windows in this building, not vinyl windows, not vinyl replacement windows. I think that that's a good step, but is it the right step for an old historic building?
All right then. Good discussion. Thank you. So I think that pretty much covers the fact that that we're, for a variety of reasons, it seems like we've said that we're not going to consider approving the old CTA, the one that we already denied. And I think we covered quite a bit of this. If not, what recommendations will the APTC make for the application to be approved. And you said that they were asking what
What's it gonna
what
be?
does the APDC want?
Right.
And I think you said it was like we should be involved in the process. There basically should be an administrative review,
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Uh,
And we'll be reasonable in that administrative review. This commission, from what I've seen, has always been reasonable in that commission, in that administrative review.
Definitely.
Okay. Great. And another item is more procedural item. What constitutes a completed application? And I'd like to start out on this. My feeling is that a completed application should simply be that they filled out all the proper paperwork and submitted the forms and submitted the fees. I think we should. I think we should get away from this policy of reviewing, within 5 days to decide if the application is complete, and kind of closing the window on requesting further information. I really feel like a completed application should just have, if we require stamped envelopes or a butters list or whatever that is, it's like, okay, let's have all those things on the, what's required for a completed application. But as long as, I think that the requirements should be very straightforward, so that before they submit the application, they should be able to go down the list and say, yep, we got it all. Here's a complete package. They can hand it in, and Marjorie can say, yes, they have all these things. Yes, this is complete. The clock is ticking now. I'm gonna pass this on, and here's their application. And really, if there's something, if we still have questions, if there's materials that we feel like we need to, learn more about the application to make a ruling on it, we can always request those, and it will be incumbent on the applicant to supply those. And if they can't supply those, and I think they can't give us an extension, then we'll just have to deny the application. But I think that's really how I think before we were requesting, for a complete application, we were assuming that meant like that it would have all the information that we need to make a determination. And I don't think we should have that expectation of an application. I think we're all gonna have to meet and discuss it before we decide if it has everything that we need.
So make a decision on the application as it is.
Sorry?
So the application has been, come in, it's been checked over, everything's there.
Right.
We get the application, we make a decision on the information that's in there.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying we can request further information. It's not to say that the application is not complete, and that the clock is not ticking. We can still request further information, and if we need further information and they don't provide it, then we might say, well, we need an extension then. And if they can't give us an extension, then we'd say, well, we can't approve this application. I'm sorry, because we didn't have enough information.
I understand.
Okay.
Could you clarify the difference between past CTAs that we've processed and what you're saying, the new CTAs, how we should deal with them?
Well, I think, the really germane issue came up with Old Primary School, where we looked at the application, and sometime after it had been submitted, we sent it back and said, this is not complete because we don't have enough information to make a decision. I think that that caused some bad blood. The applicant didn't like that, and they didn't feel like that was a reasonable procedural way to operate.
Did we have any problems with that in the previous 20 plus CTAs and administrative reviews that we went through.
And I think that was the first one. You get just, I don't know. Do you remember any others?
No, I've never had a complaint as chairman of the APDC about any CTAs, and everything's gone smoothly up until 30 School Street.
Right.
How many of those CTAs that went smoothly were involved demolition?
Most involved roof repairs, window replacement, renovation of the garage across the street, demolitions. We didn't have any.
Yeah, I don't
That was the
See,
first demolition
and
we had
that's-
to deal with.
When you look at the application, there's nothing on there that says justification for demolition. And in fact, what it says is plans, including designs and method of construction. It doesn't say justification for demolition. And I think that that's why, my guess, why you went back and said there's no justification for demolition. Because the town didn't realize it had to do that. Because the application doesn't say justification for demolition. So I think that's, and of course demolition is like the trickiest piece of historic preservation. Far more difficult than windows.
Yeah. Yeah, complete demolition.
Yeah, which is where the town said it was.
Requesting to alter, not
Yeah.
So I totally agree with what you said about the CTA and having it clear
Okay.
with the checklist, having Marjorie check it so that when it comes to us, we don't have any question. With 30 School Street, I was concerned about erring on the being really cautious to make sure I did everything properly, and I wasn't sure that everything was on that CTA.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's clear and everything is on there when it comes to us, we don't have any question about it.
Great.
Except maybe we need some more information on what type of shingle you're going to use, the type of window you're going to replace.
Right.
Now, at one point, we've replaced a lot of windows. We've replaced siding, windows, roofing materials to be replaced, historic windows, historic roofing materials, with like for like a number of times. So it's not like we haven't been flexible in our duties.
Oh yeah, no, that wasn't the question at all. This was just something that was a very direct question from the select board. What's going to constitute a completed application? And I think my response to that is that we need to go back over our application form and maybe make it just a little bit clearer about what's required and what's not. But if they have everything that's listed on the application, that should be complete. I know it is difficult just because not every requirement applies to every job. A site plan with elevations, obviously it's like for a re-roof job, you don't need that. And so it does get a little bit tricky. Just that somebody might think it's like, I can't get this application together because I don't have a site plan with elevations, and when it's like, well, you don't need that. But I don't think we can just say that on the application form. I think our form says anything that's relevant or anything, I know the bylaw says that they need to submit something that, it's gonna have all the relevant information that's gonna help us make a decision. But I don't think we can assume the applicant is gonna understand exactly what that means, and I don't think we can state that on the form. Like everything's gonna be on a case-by-case basis, right? We're gonna have to
Everything's
review it.
different. Everything
Right.
that comes in here is different.
So, yeah, let's take another look at our application form and see if we can clarify that.
Does anybody know what the building inspection department does? Like, when they get a set of plans from a builder, what constitutes a complete set of plans that they'll begin a review? Does anyone know what that looks like?
That's a very good question.
I think that process would be a good one for us to explore, because I'm pretty sure that the building department has a set of standards for what constitutes a set of plans that they're gonna go look at in detail, because that review takes a long time to do. If it's a, fairly robust project, not if it's something simple, might not. But I'm pretty sure that the building department will say, it's gotta have this, and this, in a set of plans.
Because, floor plan's one thing, but a floor plan with details and
Yeah.
a schematic.
Right,
And,
right,
Right.
right. Yeah, and in fact, in one of it may have actually been a December meeting, there was a lot of, Il Forno on Electric Avenue is talking about taking down their tent and replacing it with a structure. And he had given them a simple set of plans, and they turned that down and said, we need more detail, before we're gonna make a decision about this. So I think that, I think that for us to make it as effective and as easy as possible for someone who's gonna send this application to us, I think we ought to make sure that that application is pretty comprehensive and pretty detailed about what we expect to see. Now, I'd say, let's go talk to the building inspector and say, what do you expect, a completed set of plans to look like before you start a review? And I'm sure that they've gotten a set of plans. They said, okay, let's start to review them. And they've gotten into a certain point when they go, oh, wait a second, there's some missing information. And they have to go back and say, we need this, this, and this before we can finish our review of your set of plans.
Right.
So, I actually had called the building inspector and asked him to call me back, and asked him about this process and how it interfaced with the building inspector's, his work. Because if we approve something, eventually it gets in his lap too. So I think that would be one of my recommendations, is that before we change the application, that we make sure that we understand what they think is a completed set of plans, and use that as a guideline for us.
Great idea.
Will you follow up with that?
I will call him again.
Okay.
Excellent.
Call him
Yeah.
again.
I
please,
actually wanted to sit down and discuss with him his process.
Yeah,
So.
It may not be a simple answer. I mean, I think
No,
a lot
it
of
might-
what they pay him for is to know the answer
Right,
to that
right,
question.
right.
It's
You know,
like,
I-
this looks good, but we still need this, and
Yeah. Having submitted myself plans,
yeah,
it's not an easy process.
I bet it's not.
Mm-mm.
But I mean, I think you're absolutely right. We should go into this and as informed as we can be.
Now, when someone sends you something, they're going to say, "Well, how long will it be before I get my answer?" We need to have the answer to that question.
Right. In terms of determining if it's a completed application, though, I want it to be simple enough that Marjorie can do it. That Marjorie can just say, "Yeah, it's all here. You're good. It's complete."
Well, I think our conversation with the building inspector may be helpful in that regard,
Okay. All right.
because it may be he'll say, "I got to look at it before I can decide whether it's."
Right.
it should be able to go both ways. Most of the situations we have to deal with, like window replacement across the
Yeah.
street, replacing shingles on one side of the roof over here, things like that, they go fairly easy.
Right.
Right.
But with the zoning change in the district, I anticipate at some point there's gonna be a major project in the center of town at one of these properties that we're gonna have to deal with, so the CTA is gonna have to be more comprehensive for a situation like that. So
Right.
it should be able to, it has to encompass both of those.
But the one that we did, go back to the submitter was the one for Cornerstone Construction in the window. I
Great
mean,
example. Yes.
and it's
Yeah.
like, when I opened up that file, and I was like, window? What window?
Right. Yeah, that's a great example of an application where it had all the components, it had all the things that we requested, but the information just wasn't clear.
Right.
Like, it wasn't clear what they
Right.
were doing, and
Right.
so we had to before we could approve it, we needed more information
Yeah.
from them. I wouldn't say that was an incomplete application. We accepted it. But,
No, we did.
Huh?
No, we did. We sent that back.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah,
You're right.
we did. Because we couldn't tell.
Right. But that was only after we discussed it.
Right.
And it happened that we had a meeting shortly after we received the application.
Yes.
I think there's gonna be a lot of situations where we don't have that luxury, and, we would have to, hold a meeting just like that, which especially with a 4-member commission, we can't expect to have a quorum, that fast. So I think in retrospect, yes, we should have accepted that as a completed application and denied it had they not been able to answer our questions.
Well, I think, you had on the agenda, Colin, the bylaw review and the new application process flow chart.
Yeah.
Definitely need to do that too.
Okay. I'm feeling like it's 8:36.
We're not doing that
I
tonight.
don't think we're going to
We're
make
not
much
doing that
progress on
tonight.
that tonight.
No.
No.
But I know I often say this. Since we have discussed it in a public meeting, I think it's okay for us to exchange ideas about that privately and to review at the next meeting. So I will try to draw something up and see if I can make an improved flowchart, and something that's a little bit clearer, because people have criticized our flowchart as being inscrutable in the past. So I think we can make it simpler and clearer. So I'll try to do that, and my big idea is to, on the y-axis, to have a timeline. Have like flow chart and the steps of the process and how long they may
Yeah.
take.
Excellent.
How do we respond to the comments that we're not a historic preservation commission?
That we're the Architectural Preservation District Commission. We're responsible for it's overlaid the National Historic District. We deal with historic properties that are 75 years old and older, which are historic properties. So architectural preservation is the same as historic preservation. There's no difference between that. We deal with historic properties. We're responsible for the National Historic District. The architectural preservation is the face of the historic building. Right? We're dealing with the historic building.
100%.
So it's the same thing.
Can't preserve something that wasn't historical. You don't
Right.
preserve something that's new.
If it's less than 75 years, we have nothing to do with it.
Right. Yeah. No, honestly, I think it's a glib criticism of people who don't. I mean, my glib answer would be go back and read the bylaw and the guidelines.
So what part of the bylaw would you refer them to?
I'd say the guidelines, which are the interpretation of the bylaw.
Is it in there?
What?
Let me get to that. Should be like on the first.
It's in the ABDC mission.
I agree.
It is in there.
It's our mission statement,
And I go back to the first opening section of the bylaw purpose, where it says preserving, restoring, and protecting groups of historically or architecturally significant buildings. I think that part of the bylaw gives substance to the guidelines.
right.
We've also been given the power to deny demolition in the district, which was previously the power of the historical commission
Right.
in the demolition delay bylaw.
Right. And
So we have that,
we can
no.
invoke that if we wished.
yes.
Well, I think it's a challenge. I mean, I think that we've been challenged publicly that we're not. I mean, we've been challenged by Anna Lockwood,
Yes.
you know, in her public comments that she made at one of our meetings. We've been challenged
And
by
town meeting,
what?
she made them at
Yeah,
town
she
meeting
made
also.
them.
Yeah.
And then we've been challenged by the select board members. Is that we don't have we don't have a right to do this.
It's in the first 4 paragraphs of the APD bylaw of what we're supposed to do. The last one is that we're supposed to facilitate CTAs.
Yeah. No, I think the whole accusation that we have no business preserving historical architecture is absurd, and I honestly don't feel like we need to defend ourselves against these things. These are uninformed accusations, and people can say what they want.
I agree. Other business,
Uh,
1 minute.
do you have other business?
I have a article from the Historical Commission on demolition by neglect, for you to read at your convenience.
Excellent.
Do we have any candidates that fit that group?
Um,
I know of one White Hustle and
Yeah.
Again, some people have the resources
I
and some
know.
people
It just
don't.
says it's a sad state of affairs.
It is.
There's more than one in the
Yeah.
district,
It's one that's just so visible for me to see.
yes.
Yes. Thank you, Richard.
You're welcome. Motion to adjourn.
We just need to set our calendar for the next month.
Yeah.
Showing the first Thursday is February 2nd.
Let me just take a quick look and make sure there's
I am going to be in Seattle.
okay.
When you come back,
I won't be back until the 11th.
Okay. Well,
Might have to have the meeting without me.
could we have it?
I'm willing to work anything around it. I get.
What about? The first you're going to be gone as
Yeah,
well.
wait
I
a second.
assume?
Hold on. Let me check. Yes, I will be gone the first.
First and second, and all of the following week.
Yeah.
Well, Denny, I think you're a pretty important member of this board, and if any of us were sick, we'd have to cancel the meeting anyway. So,
Right.
I think why don't we schedule until why don't we plan to do this when you get back?
The 16th. Does that work for you guys?
We could do it on the 16th, or do you want to? I don't know. Is this
I
room
could-
available on Tuesdays as well?
Tuesdays, or we could have it down below.
I can do Tuesday. You know what? Could we? Oh,
It is Valentine's Day.
yeah.
That could get us into some trouble. But
What if we? What if we met on January 31st?
I don't think there's any
Rush.
prohibition on having our.
No,
The monthly meeting.
I think it's
2
okay
days
to do
early.
that, isn't it?
yeah, 31st is fine.
Okay.
That's the fourth
We have
week.
to go with the people we have.
Yeah. The 31st then.
Okay.
Okay. Why don't we do that? Tuesday the 31st.
All right. That's 4 weeks.
That'll be 4 weeks.
We'll have plenty of stuff to come before us, I'm sure.
Yeah, it'll be nearly 4 weeks. And yeah, why don't we plan for that?
So
and,
that's before you leave.
Yeah.
Sure.
Let me just, and I'll ask people who know more about these things than I do. I'll ask the clerk if that'll be okay if we have our regular February meeting at the end of
January.
January.
Mm.
And if not, I'll be back in touch with everybody and we'll have to reschedule for the.
Then
the
that
third.
following week, the 13th through the 16th, the 17th, those weekdays, I'm wide open.
Okay.
Do you want to go to the 13th to the 16th, someplace in there?
That'll be the can we just have that as the backup plan then?
Sure.
Okay,
Whatever-
so
whatever
that'll be the
works.
backup plan, but we'll assume it will be the 31st.
Made a motion to adjourn.
I did.
Can I
I'll
second it now?
that, Yeah,
I second.
8:46.
8:46.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All approved.